Hello, my name is Amber and I'm going to be giving a book review over this book called Impressionism by Isabel Kuhl. This is a art history type of book. It's about the Impressionist movement out of the modern movement of art history. And I'm going to be telling you all about what is inside here, and then relating that to teaching high school art with the Teaks of Texas. So first of all, I need to tell you some of the Teaks. This one says, you compare and contrast historical and contemporary styles, identifying general themes and trends. Study a selected history period of art. These are just basic Teaks that say children will study different parts of art history and their movements and the style of the movement and everything, which is exactly what this book is with Impressionist movement. So, this book is mostly chronological order. It goes from the beginning of the Impressionist movement, how it started, all of that kind of stuff, and then it goes through all the different artists from the Impressionist movement. It gives a little biography of each of them. It tells the science of the movement, and it goes all the way through post-Impressionism, and then at the end it gives some different places of Impressionism because it was in Europe, but of course it was also influenced worldwide, so it tells about that too. So it starts with how Impressionism started with this image right here. This is a painting by Monet. This is how Impressionism got its name and how it started, because this was called Impressionist Sunrise, which is the sunrise, so you can see it. So this is how the movement started, and then it goes on to talk about Monet and how he and the other Impressionist painters at the time started this whole movement in modernism. It's because they started to paint outside, because paint at this time became available to, like, in tubes where you can carry them around with you, and so now people are actually starting, or artists are actually starting to go out and paint what they see in front of them, which is Impressionism's mostly outside nature. There's some, like, people in the park, stuff like that. Here's an example of that. There's a lot of pictures in this book, so this is a painting by, one is by Renier. He painted this one. This is just some people hanging out on the beach. You can see the impressionistic style in it. Next, the book goes on to talk about the Salon in Paris, which is the group of artists who became the Impressionists. This included artists such as Monet, Pissarro, Seurat, Degas. They're all the main Impressionist artists. They all were in Paris together and kind of studied a little bit together, had like shows that showed their impressionistic style. Here is one of my favorite artists of Impressionists is Claude Monet, which he is in this book a lot. It talks about him, and it has a bunch of his images, his art in here. This is a really nice one. You can see it. So there is another example of what was going on during the Salon in Paris. Then the book goes on to talk about the science of Impressionism, because it wasn't just the art movement, it was also a study of color and light and color. Since they were outside now, the artists studied how the light from like outside hit and how you could see different color. Like black isn't black, like black is like dark blues and grays and purples, and so it goes on to talk about like how they study color. You can see like in these pictures, and they got the little color wheel over here, and then this just talks about the science of it all, because that's kind of why I like this movement too. It's more of a study of color in art. It's not just painting just to paint. Let's see. Next, they talk about this is around the time where middle class became really big, and so people were actually going out and like doing stuff on the weekends. And here they painted. Impressionists painted a lot of this stuff, like people at the beach or at the park, or just like Saturdays. Like it was a big day for Impressionists to paint. And here are some examples. These are both Monet, not Monet, Monet. Monet. I don't know how you say it, but there's a couple examples of that. Then next it will go on to talk about post-impressionists, which is Van Gogh. I'm sure you've heard of him. He has a couple in here. And then Seurat did pointillism. This is a really famous Impressionist painting because he used dots. Like pointillism is like dots of color. And that's what this is made up of. Just a bunch of dots of color next to each other. And then when they're next to each other, they make a color, which is the whole science of light and color and the whole Impressionist movement. Let me see. I had a Van Gogh. Got some of his pictures in here. Here's some of Van Gogh's. There's another one. The next page. That's obviously Van Gogh right there. And then it talks about, it's got his little biography over here because he was a pretty famous post-impressionist. And then it goes on to talk about these series of paintings that a bunch of the Impressionists did with their study of color and light. They painted the same image at different times of the day, different times of the year, just to see how the color changes and the light changes everything. So here Monet did some haystacks, not this one, but these two are both his. This was, I think this is actually summer and winter, but he did stuff like that. He also did water lilies. That's not what I was saying. Some water lilies. It's the same place, just different times, just to study what he's painting. And then it goes on to talk about worldwide, because all this, the salon in Paris and everything, that was all mostly in the Paris area. Like, that's just where Impressionism was at the time. But it also goes on, and like here's some people from other parts of Europe. They've got some other parts of the world in here. I mean, it just kind of gives a little bit about how they were influenced by the original Impressionists in Paris. And then, I think this is really cool. At the end of the book, sorry, it's a really big book. Okay, so it's got this painting at the end that opens up, and it's got the whole timeline of the Impressionist movement. So I think that's really neat. That will be a really good thing for students if you give them this book to look at. They can just hop to the back of it and look at a timeline if they want. Obviously, they need to read it to understand what Impressionism is, and if they want to read about certain artists. Since I've already read it now, I like to go back and just flip through it and look at the images for inspiration. And so yeah, that's this book. Impressionist is my favorite movement, so that's why I really like this book. Again, this is by Isabel Kuhl, just called Impressionism. And I think it's a really good book. I mean, it's really good for in your classroom, just on your bookshelf with all your other books. I think it's good as an art teacher to have a book like this for each art movement. I mean, it's simple, easy to read. It gives a description of the movement and certain artists that influenced it, and then it has a bunch of pictures, which of course in art you need a bunch of pictures in your books. So it's not just some boring history book. I mean, you can just flip through and look at the pictures if you want. And so that concludes my review of this book. Thank you for listening.